Black cisgender heterosexual identified men are killing Black trans women. Black ones.
We are not talking about it in the church.
Those street guys are already engineers. If they're mixing drugs and stuff together, they're chemical engineers.
If you're just like, yeah, let's kill 50 cops just because, you know, that's only a fraction of the Black people that they killed. Wait, now you're talking about my wife.
For those of you who are joining in, we are talking about just the housing in the Black community and owning property, why it's important, and how to get yourself in there.
When I think of financial literacy, I just don't think of the classroom work. I think some of it is practical application.
I'm scared, especially, you know, calling them to arms, talking about poll workers or poll watchers. That is rooted in history of voter suppression and intimidation.
Joe Biden needs to make that a part of his educational platform.
Call that shit out.
I don't see much value in you speaking in tongues, and yet when you speak in English, you don't say nothing for my people.
Many of the reasons why we're dying is because of the conditions we live under that cause our health to be so bad, and that cause it's the food, it's the water, it's clean that shit up first.
When their fathers had prostate cancer, I had like a 150% chance of getting cancer, being diagnosed with cancer. I had a friend that did a raw vegan diet, 20 years remission, had thyroid cancer, never had surgery. I'm like, that's what I'm doing.
This week in Black People Shit. Black and gay are the LGBT plus fully supported by our community. I'm your host, Chrystee Pharris. Earlier this year in Minneapolis, after the tragic attack on Ayana Dior, a trans woman who was peacefully protesting, Emmy Award-winning actor and LGBT activist Billy Porter spoke out about the lack of support from the Black community and said that Black trans, as well as gender non-conforming women and men, are being killed in the United States by cis Black men to such a degree that it is nearly the worst emergency for trans women on the planet. Last year alone, the HRC Foundation, Human Rights Campaign Foundation, released a report called A National Epidemic: Fatal Anti-Transgender Violence in the United States since 2019. And it showed that out of the 22 transgender and non-conforming people that were killed in 2019, all but one were Black. So are we really failing our LGBT plus brothers and sisters? Or is it just a case of lack of context? With me to discuss these issues and many more are national organizer, author, and inclusion specialist Hope Giselle, and life coach, media personality, and motivational speaker Monroe Howard. With me, as always, is my co-host, actress, activist, and personal videographer for DJ 24K, Janora McDuffie. And back from his vacation, writer, food critic, and New York City pizza lover, Abdul Majid. Let me bring everybody in. That was a mouthful. I was like, that was a whole lot going on in here. How's everybody doing?
Hey, what's going on?
Hey, thank you for being here. And let me just let everybody know, please don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this video. And if you'd like to join in on our conversation, please put your questions in the chat room because we love to hear from you. All right, so we have a whole lot to discuss right now. I mean, there's so much going on. And the first thing that we're going to do is we are going to talk about Breonna Taylor. So if you guys don't know, I'm sure you could have heard, but some people like Hope and I were running around and didn't hear it at the very beginning, but a grand jury indicted the officer since he was fired on charges of endangering neighbors with reckless gunshots, but no one was charged for shooting Miss Taylor in her apartment. So what are your thoughts on that? And do you feel like justice was served? Let me start with you. How do you feel about this?
Did you call me out, Chrystee?
I did.
Okay, all right. I'm sorry because I didn't hear. Let me just say to answer your question directly, absolutely not. Justice has not been served. And I think the unfortunate thing is, I believe it's been 194 days. I believe it is
97 days.
196 days. 106. too long.
64.
How about
Okay.
whatever number it is, too long. The unfortunate thing is that a Black man in America, I don't have any hope in the justice system, and that justice would have been served in light of this Black queen who was in her home, sleeping in her home, and whose body was violated, was murdered, was killed at the hands of, once again, officers who did not take into account humanity and human life, right? So this piece, it's continued to be underscored by our justice system, that our lives have no meaning, don't matter, regardless of the outcry, regardless of the facts, regardless of the things in which we have been fighting for years upon years upon years upon years, in which life has already been shed. So to answer your question directly, no, justice has not been served.
Yeah. And how about you, Hope? How did it make you feel?
Honestly, at this point, I think that the best thing that we can do is request the minutes. I want the minutes from the actual jury. I want to know how it was presented to them, because what we all know to be a fact is that Breonna Taylor's body, as Monroe just said, it was violated. And so there's no way that as a human person or as somebody indulging in the ways in which that we've been fortunate enough to be able to indulge in democracy and discourse, that I'm going to look at something as difficult, right, as this case is to process as a Black person, right? There's no way that as a person of any race that I'm going to look at this, see the facts, and then say, oh, I'm not going to charge this person with murder. There's no way. And so I think that what it's going to have to do is that we're going to have to bring Daniel to the forefront, the judge, and ask him and demand that he release the minutes, because I want to know how this case was presented to a jury. I want to know more about this jury. I want to know about the ways in which the information could have been possibly disseminated in a way that often, as it usually is, minimize the harm that was caused onto a Black woman that day. And that's just where I'm at. I'm over the idea of crying. I'm over the idea of us saying what needs to happen, because I think at this point we all know what needs to happen and allies know what needs to happen. But it's about actually now using this same system that they used to oppress us to pull the wool back, right? Pull those capes off, pull those hoods off, and really get us, what we need, which is justice for Breonna.
I am curious to know what the Attorney General, his name is Daniel Cameron. He is the one that asks. He will ask the grand jury to issue, like, what did he ask for from them? Like, so the reporters. Okay, let me go back. My brain is going because I'm thinking about what you just said. So the reporters asked the Attorney General, the grand jury. Okay, my brain is just not working. I have like 15,000 things that are happening all at the same time.
Take your time.
Anyway, the reporters asked the Attorney General what they were going to issue, and he wouldn't answer it. So we know that he's the one that presented to them what they should be giving to these cops. So Brain will come back in a second. How about you, Abdul? Your feelings on this?
I don't know. I've been numb about this whole thing for a while now, but I wasn't surprised by it. When I was back in Jersey on my little vacation, I had a lunch with a high school friend of mine, and she's a Black woman, but she's also a sheriff. And we spoke about several of these incidents just because I wanted to pick her brain about it. And she said something to the effect that you don't have problem with the police, you have problem with what they're allowed to do, the laws and what they're allowed to do. And that sort of resonated with what happens with what was going on today. Like if you look at any of the older court cases with regards to the killing of Black people, it was the technicality was always what the police were allowed to do in those particular scenarios. And in this particular scenario, once her boyfriend fired a shot, they gave them permission to do whatever. And I'm not saying it's right. I don't agree with it. I think it's wrong. I think they need to go to jail. But I understood her point. And I think maybe in the future, or maybe something that we're actually doing now, is to attack the laws that allow these police officers to have no accountabilities, go after their pensions, go after the police unions and what have you. I think that might be a way to get some justice, because I don't think we can continue to live in this existence and not lash out violently like a lot of us want to do.
Right. And if there wasn't anything that they did wrong, then why did they reward
$12 million?
$12 million? You know what I mean? So,
I think so. So my problem always with this situations like this, when it comes to legalities, is like, yes, there's legality. There's things that you're allowed to do, but on the other side, there's things morally you just shouldn't do. Like, you should have more concern for human life to just be firing recklessly. So even if you're allowed to do certain things, morally, your moral compass should direct you in a position where you wouldn't want to do those things, even if given the opportunity. And that's normally my problem with a lot of these police officers, is that given the opportunity, if it was them on the other side of the gun, they would want us to be more discriminate about how we use our actions. But when they're on the other side of it and they have the gun, they just say, "Oh, it's the law." You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
I mean,
how about you, Janora? Oh, go ahead. What were you going to say?
I was going to say, like, let's be very clear. It's not what they're allowed to do. It's what white police officers are allowed to do. Because we've seen Black police officers, try to reprimand and step in, and then they are often reprimanded for trying to reprimand, the folks who are doing this. It's not about, I think that we cannot get away from the fact that this is about race. This is about the idea of white people engaging white supremacy and using that white supremacy, especially in spaces where they have power, and especially in places where they have badges and all of these other ranks and stuff over Black people. We are not invited onto the police force because they just want us to be there. In most cases, we're invited on to police forces because they want to make a quota of diversity and say that we are not just hiring white people to do these crimes, and so that they can honestly, in most cases, have scapegoats to say, well, this person was there and that person was there, so these things shouldn't have happened, or they wouldn't have happened if you would have held other people accountable, while not holding the person responsible for the actual crime accountable. I don't think that we have an issue with the way that police are allowed to govern themselves. It's the way that white police officers are allowed to govern themselves without consequence that I think a lot of us have issue with. And not being able to say that outright is going to be the ultimate problem, because then that loops them in with the good cops, that loops them in with cops of color, that loops them in with other Black cops who are really trying to do something good here. And so it's not about their power, it's about white men mostly abusing their power on the force when they get it.
Yeah, there's definitely.
I agree with that. I agree with that to a point. But I do think that a lot of it, like, I do think racism is the overarching enemy in this whole thing. I will not take that away from your point, but I do think a lot of it has to do with what they're allowed to do. With particularly the Breonna case, in this particular decision, a lot of it had to do with the fact that the boyfriend shot first, even though they had no knock warrant or what have you. In this particular case, the fact of the matter is that the boyfriend shot first. I'm not excusing the police, but I'm saying because of that, that's why they got away with it. Because he shot first.
I think, and again, kind of underscoring Hope's point, is that where race is a factor here is because we know that if that was a white man, white woman that was in that home, this would not have been an issue as far as us having no justice for this woman and for the loss of her life. And we've seen that over and over and over again, where there is inequity in how things are handled in when it comes to race. So I hear what you're saying, and understanding that, yes, there are these laws and there are these regulations. And I feel like it is a multi-pronged approach. So yes, we need to attack the regulations and the laws, but we also need to be very mindful of the culture of the police force, of the individuals that are allowed to be on the police force, that are making the decisions and that are interpreting. And hear what I'm saying, because the law is the law, but then there are people, they have the opportunity to interpret how they are going to enforce that law, to interpret how they are going to act upon that law. And I think that is very important for us to recognize as well.
All right, so Janora, what are your thoughts on this?
Boy, I have a lot of them.
Yeah.
And I want to take in everything that you all have responded with as well. I too am numb. I too am not surprised. I too, Abdul, agree that it's racism involved, but it's involved at the level of the system. And that is the most difficult part to hold accountable. But what has to happen in order to move forward? For example, if we said, oh, yay, today it actually came back that the police were arrested, that actually pulled the trigger to kill Breonna Taylor, that would still not solve the problem. As in, there are still laws that allowed them to come to the door in the first place, or have the no-knock warrant, or to have this messy investigation to begin with that had a lot of holes and a lot of questions, or that allowed them not to have their police cameras on in the first place. Hope I am at the point, however, that I really make sure I try not to fully put people in a category or generalize. So for me, it is hard to say, well, it's the white cops and if it was a black cop. I will agree with you in Monroe in that, you know, let's just say it's a white woman and her boyfriend, they might have not knocked in the door in the first place, or they might not even have been on their map and to-do list to go. But that is the part that's hard to prove. But that's the part that is actually rooted in this tricky web of systematic racism. And I think in terms of moving forward and where to place our anger and our frustration is to show up at the polls, is to vote. And it's not even talking about the president. And I know we're going to get to some other conversations later, but we're talking about at your local level where you do vote for the person that chooses the DA or appoints the DA or the AG or the judges, that we pick the judges, or vote for the sheriffs. All these people are involved in making the rules, are involved in holding the people accountable, or this whole grand jury system helping to construct that. That is where change needs to happen. Otherwise, we could see this happen again. I admit I have a different perspective, or my perspective has to be numb and a step back, because my wife is a police officer. So rules that happen, our protocol that is followed, it becomes part of my awareness, but it doesn't loosen my passion, but it allows me to step back and look at the full picture and those players involved and how I can be involved in terms of moving the conversation and love and the story forward. So I feel like at this point we all mad. I feel like at this point I pray for peace, because I know that if shit turns crazy, it will be the whole law and order conversation that will come back, and that will be a main topic again in this upcoming election, as in y'all don't want these riots, so y'all need to vote for law and order Trump. Like when the conversation about where it even starts from isn't a conversation that's had. It's just, look at these people and the way that they are writing. But I do understand how that becomes a voice when you don't have a voice, or where you think your voice isn't heard. So let's vote, y'all. That's a long time. Let's vote. Damn it.
Yeah, I just feel like everybody had such a good point. And my thing is that they wouldn't have paid the family the $12 million. They definitely wouldn't have made some changes with the task force reform, getting rid of the no-knock warrants. I mean, there was obviously something going on, but the simple fact that they did not charge anybody for her death, but charged on the basis of, possibly killing somebody else, it just doesn't make any sense to me. And I think everybody is just tired of being sick and tired. So we have a couple of questions that are out here. It should also be noted that Daniel Cameron is on the short list to be the next Supreme Court justice to replace Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, sadly. Which I have to do more research on that. That's not why they got away with it. Natasha says they would have got away with it no matter the reason they shot. And then somebody has an I have no idea what that one is. And then Tim says this case yet again demonstrates the need to remove oversight of police departments and place it with the Justice Department. DAs and AGs, attorney generals, often make decisions based on local policy. Is that politics? I need my glasses. And a built-in bias to protect police officers. All of that is agreed upon. So with all that being said, we'll jump kind of quickly to, as Mario talked about with, over the weekend, we lost Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She passed away due to complications from pancreatic cancer, leaving many to wonder what the future of our judicial system will look like. So now that the current president has another Supreme Court judge seat to fill, are you concerned about the state of the Supreme Court? We'll start with you, Abdul.
I'm always concerned. I lean liberal, so I'm always concerned about civil liberties that happen for any people, especially Black people. I know it's in the last couple of cases that some of the Supreme Court justices voted on the side of liberals and pushed things down, with like the case of Byron Allen's case. I believe they pushed it back to the Second Circuit Court. But I'm always concerned. Anytime you got a bunch of conservatives, possibly racists in there, presiding over the lives of the majority of people who will be, minorities within the next 10 to 15, 20 years. And these people are sitting long term. I really do have concerns about our justice system and its direction. And it is, whether it be women's rights, whether it be LGBT plus rights, whether it be reparations for Black people, like all those things concern me, because I know with a conservative judicial system that it's not going to go the way that majority of the people on this country would like it to go.
Yeah. How about you, Hope?
Honestly, I think that her death really shook me, because she was one of the front runners for women's rights. And that to me is a huge thing. Ruth Bader Ginsburg was one of the women that was able to kind of sort of stand up and just say no. In spaces where women weren't able to come in and make decisions or weren't asked to be a part of the table, she pulled up a seat and said, I dare you to make me move. And I think that a loss of her shakes me as a woman, because there aren't many women that are willing to do that. There aren't many up and coming women that are going to be able to get into that seat, and make that same impact. And then on top of that, being somebody who was not only a woman who fought for women of all races and creeds, she was a woman who fought indefinitely and vastly for the LGBT community. And so looking at the decision that we made when we allowed Kavanaugh a seat, I don't have a lot of faith in the judicial system and the way that they choose a lot of the people that have seats. But what I do have faith in is the activism and the work that a lot of these groundbreaking folks like Tamika Mallory and Until Freedom and Linda Sarsour and, all of these folk, the work that they're doing, I have faith in that work, and I have faith in their abilities to call out the injustices and make sure that people are moved to make the right decisions. A lot of those things that happened for Breonna Taylor happened because of those activists, happened because of those people that were grassroots working. And so while we might have lost Ruth in this fight, I think that the fire that she left in the people is what's going to really help us get through.
And just so you know, before I jump in to you, Monroe, for the people who might be young, maybe don't know a lot of the laws that Ginsburg helped pass, one of them was employers cannot discriminate against employees based on gender or reproductive choices. Another one was state-funded schools must admit women. Another one was women have the right to financial independence and equal benefits. Another one was men are entitled to the same caregiving and Social Security rights as women. So those are just some of the few things that she was able to help pass, which is amazing. Monroe, how about you?
I think, and I echo the sentiments of both of my peers on this panel, but I just want to say, I think it also just highlights the impact and effects when you have certain individuals in office, and that their impact goes beyond their 4 or their 8-year terms. So that it is imperative that we are extremely intentional, and we're extremely active in the process and really electing these officials, such as the presidency, who not only has this opportunity to do it at the federal, at the highest level, but then also some of the appointments that are happening in some of these other, other courts that are happening that are going to impact us at the local level. So I think in her passing, and it is very important for us to definitely make sure that we see that it is not just our inactive or apathetic attitude towards voting has long-term impacts. And in this case, these are lifetime appointments. And that, as both Abdul and Hope have stated, have impact on millions and millions of lives. So I just wanted to point that out.
How about you, Janora?
Let me unmute myself. Yes, y'all here on this call. Lord have mercy. Hope I was shook too. And Monroe, yes, you hit it right on the head. It's not just this election or our lifetime. We're talking about generations changed by who fills that seat. 4 million. So if that is not a call to vote, and Ruth Bader Ginsburg stood more than just for women's rights, but for all rights of the marginalized community, like for equal rights for all. So that is my right to be married to a woman. It is rights. We had beautiful sisters from last week, rights of the disabled, as well as just those who need an extra person to have the voice and interpret the law in that favor of equality. So yes, we need somebody in that seat that can represent that. Unfortunately, it is frustrating and scary for me to see what's going on now in terms of possibly being somebody who is going to rewind the clock so much when it comes to women's rights and ownership of their body. I think about The Handmaid's Tale. That I don't know if you guys watch that, but that gives me goosebumps all day. So I'm ready. Yeah. I'm ready to show up to the polls. I'm ready to do what it takes to encourage those to be fired up, whether it's Breonna Taylor, whether it's Ruth Bader Ginsburg. It is time, y'all. It is a wake-up call for us to do something.
And I was just going to say, The Handmaid's Tale is nothing but the Black woman's story during slavery, but that's just a whole nother story. And that's all I got to say about that. Because I was like, this ain't nothing but Black women dealing with all the stuff that, having to have babies with, but that's a whole nother situation there. Let's jump into why we are here. And I just want to give a shout out to Nate. I don't know if he's still here because I know we started with the Breonna Taylor, but Nate Walker is a friend of mine from college. He is, he identifies in the LGBT plus community, and he is also a pastor. So I just want to give a shout out to him. I just absolutely adore him and always have. But we're on this Breonna Taylor situation. People are out there marching again. It's about Black Lives Matter. And yet we also have another portion of the people in our community who are also marching for all Black Lives Matter. And that was the reason why I wanted to have this discussion, because we know that people in the community, in the LGBT plus community, are having, I don't know, maybe I won't say a hard time, not being supported, not being heard. The trans community, they're being killed. And I'm wondering, how can we change this dynamic? How can we change all of that that's happening? I'll start with you, Monroe.
Actually, I want to defer to my sister Hope, because I want to defer to Hope to start the conversation off. And no, go ahead, Hope. Go ahead, Hope.
Go ahead, Hope. Go ahead, Hope.
To be perfectly honest, I think that there's a lot of work that needs to be done. But a lot of it is intrapersonal, which is why I think that most Black people think that LGBT Black folk are trying to co-opt the movement because they don't want to talk about the work that has to be done inside the community to help reflect the work that will then make us a stronger movement. And it has to be said, Black cisgender heterosexual identified men are killing Black trans women. Black ones. Black ones. Black ones. Okay. When we're looking at the numbers and we're seeing, you guys heard it, like all but one last year, all but one. And when we're looking at the numbers for this year, we're looking at about the same sort of deal. And I think that there's a need for a lot of people outside of the LGBTQIA plus community to say, well, like we're talking about police brutality because we can't be protecting Black men, but also holding them accountable for their bullshit at the same time. That's not what we want to do as a Black community. That's not what we've been taught to do. As a Black community, we've been taught to uphold masculinity. We've been taught to protect masculinity. We've been taught to serve masculinity. And so for us to actually care, for us to actually be in a space where we can say all Black lives matter, we have to hold those same Black men that we're trying to protect from white people accountable for being the white people of the Black community. And that sucks, right? It's one of those things where, especially as a Black trans woman who stands with Black men, it's hard for us to show up to these marches and have Black men marching next to us, giving us the dirty face. It sucks when I have my sisters calling me saying, like, I don't know if I want to show up to this march because I was threatened the last time I went out there because I had a sign that said I was trans. It sucks when you have Black trans people trying to make videos and in the comments of those videos, they're being disrespected. When you have Chief Justices like Andrea, who is, I'm not even sure what seat she holds right now, but as somebody who holds an office and who holds seat in the political office, for her to get up and talk about the deaths of Black men, and then in the comments, Black men are talking shit about the fact that she's a Black trans woman who is speaking out on the deaths of Black men is absolutely ridiculous. And so I think that a large portion of the reason why we're having this issue and a large part of the things that might help us fix it is us being able to have the hard conversation and say, hey, yo, Black men, get your shit together. Because I think that even outside of the Black LGBTQ community, it seems like a lot of cisgender Black men are just not appreciative of the Black women's work. They're not appreciative of any work that doesn't seem to come from malehood and masculinity and doesn't uphold that. And it just sucks. And it seems as though a lot of the anger is being taken out on Black LGBTQ people because there's another stigma around the ways in which we're treated within the Black diaspora and the Black scope of the Black family. We're not seen as useful. We're not seen as helpful. We don't continue the lineage. We are, often called, disgraces and told that we don't add anything or anything of value to the community. And so therefore, we need to take our little movement on somewhere else. And it's hard and it sucks. And I think that it has to start with having those hard conversations. And then also acknowledging the nuances in which cisgender Black women hold because of the way that, they were raised up and the social sort of desires that we're taught to have as cisgender Black women. And, and then also deal with the trauma that Black LGBT people have. Everybody's not out to get you. And so all of these things are in-house issues. And I think that that's a part of the reason why a lot of cisgender Black folk and Black folk who don't identify with being a part of the queer community, I think that that's the reason why they don't find it as important, because it's one of those things where it's like, well, what happens in our house is our business. Right, and for us to fix that, we have to talk about what's happening in our house out loud. And people don't like that, especially Black men.
So let me ask you, Monroe, because you're a life coach, you're a life coach. You deal with a lot of these issues that people are dealing with in their homes. I know that there were a couple of times where you had talked about some of the parents who are dealing with their kids. Just talk about your experience of being a life coach and dealing with some of these issues that are coming up? How are you supporting? How are you, keeping people from having a breakdown through all this?
Yeah. Well, and I just wanted to explain my deferring to my sister first and Hope, because I wanted to also recognize, and this may be controversial, but I'm going to say it because it's how I feel. I wanted to give Hope the respect to speak the truth of the trans community, because there is some privilege as a cisgender Black gay man that I hold that sometimes the trans community does not hold. And so I wanted to make sure that I recognize that, because even as a marginalized individual, as being a Black man and a Black gay man, as a masculine presenting man, there are opportunities for me to sometimes assimilate into the privileged culture. So I just needed to say that. And that's the reason why I wanted to defer to my sister to have that conversation first. We as Black gay individuals have still also, so understand that this is layered a lot of times for our trans brothers and sisters, because even within the Black queer community, LGBT community, there is definitely ostracization. I want to make sure I said that correctly, sometimes, of our trans brothers and sisters. And now let me let you know that that is rooted in our own shame, in our own self-hate that's been indoctrinated over and over and over again from our social circles, our religious communities, so on and so forth. So there is hurt that actually does exist that then continues to perpetuate the ridicule and the injustice that happens. But I just wanted to explain that right there, and the reason why I wanted Hope to have that time first to put that out. So to your direct question to me, Chrystee, I wanted to say that the first thing that I hope to instill within parents who may have a child who is, coming into their own, understanding who they are authentically, and may be struggling with that for some of the reasons why I just mentioned, in regards to having challenges with being who you are, is that is still your child. That is still your son. That is still your daughter. Or that is still your gender non-conforming human being that was birthed out of you, that you adopted, or however that child came to you. That is still the individual that depends on you to say mother, father, parent, guardian, protector, whatever the case may be. So to understand that for that rejection to come for that source can be one of the most devastating things that can ever happen to an individual, especially as they are forming their identities. And understand that. So when I am talking with individuals, I am helping us understand that we are human beings, regardless of how you may identify. And this is hard for some people because there are, and I saw the word indoctrination, there are all of these indoctrinations that we hold on to about what somebody is supposed to be, how they are supposed to be, based on our own experiences, based on our own teachings, based on our own lies. And I will call it out, lies. There are lies that have been perpetuated from generation to generation that then get imposed on our most vulnerable populations, our young people. Understand, because this at this time is where you can, again, you have the opportunity to help a young person either come into their greatness and their power, or you have the great possibility of diminishing that light and forever, not forever, I won't say that, hopefully they will be able to, but to start them out on a trajectory of self-hate, self-loathing, which leads to ultimately, in many cases, death and suicide, right? Or harmful behavior. So when I have these conversations with our parents or guardians or ones who may not understand, and I understand if it's not your truth, I don't expect you to understand, but I do not expect you to spew hate. I do not expect you to degrade. Those are the things that we need to take into consideration when we are saying, I don't understand. It's okay to say, I don't understand. And it is okay to say, I'm struggling with this. But it is never okay to say that I hate you, or that some of the other things that we are talking about that young people have had to endure from the people. Let's go back to what I say are the guardians, are the protectors, are the ones who are commissioned, who are entrusted, and I use that word very intentionally, who are entrusted with these very vulnerable lives.
Go ahead, Monroe. Just so you guys know, Monroe is my cousin. So, and he over there drinking his wine. I'm extremely proud of him that he is living in his truth and being able to help a whole bunch of people. Go ahead, Janora. I know you got something.
I'm sorry for my dramatic pauses. I apologize for that. Part of it's being an actress. Part of it's naturally over dramatic, but the majority of it is just the power and the weight of this conversation. Hope, everything you just talked about, like, I had no idea. I marched in the All Black Lives Matter march here in LA, and I was proud and I was excited, but I had no idea that my trans brothers and sisters, even during the Black Lives Matter march, were being harassed. Like, and Monroe, everything you talked about, as especially when it came to acknowledging not understanding. I mean, sure, if I don't walk in your shoes and I got questions, I want to understand. And I feel like we don't often ask to understand, but regardless, hate should never be an option. So in those two instances, my question is, Monroe, why is hate chosen? And Hope as well. Like, I heard you guys break it down. So maybe not just staying in the problem. For me, it's always, all right, well, how do we find a solution? So in that case, Monroe, how do we move forward from hate to just asking and trying to understand? And Hope, how do we empower our people to treat each other just with kindness? And I know that's a long stretch to say, giving people the evil eye or all these negative comments when it comes to a conversation about transgender people, go straight to kindness. I just don't understand that. And I recognize, Monroe, you pointed out my privilege. I know I recognize myself in the LGBT community, but man, the privilege and the hidden, untalked about hierarchy even within that. So I am asking, honestly, from a sense of being hurt myself just from this conversation, of a mirror being put up to myself and to society, that I would love to see improve.
Let me just say this, Janora, in response to what you said, I think a lot of times, and in my practice, I find that a lot of the hate is underscored by fear. We fear what we don't know, right? And then so our natural reaction is to hate. But here's what the fear is that I find a lot of times, and not every single case, but it's about, how is this going to reflect on me? If I have an LGBTQIA plus child, how does that reflect on me as a parent, as a member of this society? And so if there is, and I'm not saying for all, but I do want to point out that I have found this to be, if people really interrogate where their disdain comes from for that child or for that family member, a lot of it gets rooted back to, well, how is this going to look for me? And it never has any consideration for the life that stands before you. So there is a level of selflessness that individuals must have in order to move from this hate, this disdain, this disgust, into trying to understand the truth and the reality and the existence of these individuals who are, once again, your child, your brother, your sister, your partner, your mother, your father. There's all these different connections or dynamics that exist that all of a sudden thrown out because now, am I back?
Yeah, you're back.
I don't know. Am I back?
Go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right. So anyway, point out
Nope. I think we're losing.
Is
We're losing you again. We're losing you again.
about
So just give it a second. Give it a second, Monroe, and then we'll have you come back in because right now we're losing signal. I just want to add. I just want to add to it real quick. Is a lot of that also comes from growing up in the church and what the word says and um, how, like you said, how are the parents, how is the family going to look? A lot of parents feel like they failed their kids because they are gay. I've seen a lot of parents that have gone through all that. If I had have done this, if I had have done that. And I have another cousin on my mom's side who just said he knew from the very beginning that he was gay. There was nothing that happened to him. He wasn't molested. He wasn't this. He wasn't that. But he just knew. And so it took a minute, but I know that his parents were like, okay, that's just what it is. But they didn't make him feel like crap about it. And a lot of parents make people feel like crap. And I have another friend of mine that is on the streets right now because of it, because their parents, outcasted him and said that he was, bad, horrible, not a son of mine, that type of thing. So, so we have to really be careful. Hope, I know that you're somewhat in the dark, and then I'll let Abdul jump in. Did you want to add anything to that Janora was talking about? And Monroe, I think you're back. Go ahead.
okay.
I mean, I think first and foremost, I think that it's just great to see two other people from the community acknowledge their privilege, and acknowledge the fact that, especially as people, because what a lot of folks don't understand, and I had to even explain this to my own mother, is that just because folks are a part of your community doesn't even mean that they understand and they get you, right? There are a lot of trans folks, because a lot of people don't even know that our gender and our sexuality are not synonymous. So when people just assume that trans people are gay, it's just like, no, I'm a straight woman. I like men, like that is a man who likes women. We are heterosexual people. Our gender is trans, but it does not affect the way that we love. So that's like one thing, but to see two people from the community sort of acknowledge, like, yes, there is privilege. Yes, there are things that happen to you that don't happen to me because of the way that I present to the world. That means a lot. And it means a lot for people to understand and hear folks say that, because trans people, and especially Black trans women, are not safe. Because it goes back to what I was saying, in our community, masculinity is coveted. And what Black trans women do is essentially say, fuck that, for something that Black men are like, why would you leave all of this to go and be that, And it goes into the deeper, it goes into the deeper conversation of the idea, like the conversation in women's spaces, where we're just like, do y'all even really like women? Or are we just receptacles? Because it's just like, there's all of this queen talk, there's all of this stuff, there's all of this whatever, but then there's a whole bunch of disrespectful conversations that happen around women. And so I think for a lot of Black men, it's like, why would you leave your manhood to go and be something that we are inherently disrespectful to on certain levels, And I think that that's a thing that always kind of registers with people when they're just like, I don't understand the hate. And I think that that's where the hate comes from. The hate comes from this idea that masculinity is supposed to be the golden goose, right? I had a boy. This is going to be my way out. This is going to be my thing. And so for you to, how dare you reject that? How dare you take away my prized possession in this space? But also I think that just acknowledging the idea that as parents, I don't think that you fail when you have someone in your family or have a child who is a part of the community. I think that you fail when you decide to no longer parent. I think that you fail when that love becomes conditional. I think that you fail when you choose to make the decision to say, you know what, I'll let the Lord deal with you outside of my home. There's a bunch of these things that we hear from people that I love to call out, because it's just like, save me the bullshit with the I'm okay, but there is no okay, but you either are or you're not. You're either comfortable or you're not. And I think that what people fail to realize is that there are different levels to your acceptance. There's different levels to your allyship. And it doesn't mean that you're not an ally if you're honest and open about the idea that, you know what, I understand all these other letters, but the T has got me fucked up for right now. And I'm open and honest about saying that I still need a little bit more help. I prefer knowing that I'm going to be in a space of education with somebody than believing that this person understands when they don't. I'm okay with people acknowledging that, you know what, I'm not where I need to be, and I'm going to trigger you a lot of days, but I'm willing to learn, than having a space that's been open to me and told to me that it was safe when it's not going to be. You know, and I think that that's a gem that I wanted to drop.
And that's why I think it's important that we're having this conversation, and that's what BPS is about, because Black People Shit is about, because, you know, like Janora brought up, last week we had women who were Black and they were also disabled, and how they felt like they were in this little bubble, like they don't identify with the rest of the Black people because it's not the same, you know. And so I think it's important that we have these conversations, because I want people to start to look at things differently, and just instead of looking at it in just one way, you know. So that's why it's important that we're having these conversations out there. Abdul.
I agree with both Hope and what Monroe said throughout this particular time. But I do have a question, and my question is to whomever can answer, but it's going to be directed to Hope. Everything you said, I agree with. I'm not for the hate. I'm not for any of that stuff. I grew up in New York and New Jersey, so stuff like people of that community was always around me. I never had that problem. My problem is not a problem. What is hard for me to wrap my mind around is the science of it. Is how do you change what constitutes a male or a female without changing the science behind it? And the idea of it isn't applicable to anything other than a trans person, meaning that I don't think there's anything else where you could do a I don't want to be just a sort of a cosmetic alteration of some sort in any field, and if you changed it, you would have to refer it to that thing. You understand what I'm trying to say? Does that make sense? Yes, no. So how does
I think that's the beauty of,
yeah.
I mean, that's the beauty of us being humans, and animals being animals, and things being things, and matter being matter. As human beings, we're smart enough to be able to come to those conclusions. There's a lot of things that we allow animals to do that we don't allow people to do. Dogs can run up behind another dog and woefully take sex from them. But we know as people that that's not a thing that we're willing to do. So why as people can't we come together and understand that with all the science that's been presented? You know, I understand what you're saying, but I think that the fact of the matter is that there are not enough people that are doing the research. The science has been presented around transgenderism actually being something that occurs naturally in the gene pool. The science was presented years ago for the same thing about homosexuality, and people just refuse to acknowledge that. But if we're talking specifically around the ways that trans people show up in the world, it's really about respect. I can call a grown man Day, and I've seen it. A lot of us, especially in the Black community, we are willing to accept that a grown-ass 45-year-old man wants to be called slim and identifies as such. But we don't want to acknowledge that your friend Jason has decided to make a change socially and just wants to be called Jessica. Like that's like that. My thing is the science of that doesn't have anything to do with whether or not you respect them. And I think that most of the time the science is wrapped more around the idea of people's ability to be tricked and or attracted to us. It's like, well, you got to explain this science to me because I don't get that. Because you low-key could fool me, or you low-key might be able to get in certain spaces that I don't think you should be able to get in without my knowledge. And so explain this to me so that I know how to clock it. And it's just like, it seems to me like a lot of the time folks only want to know the science behind it so that they can then refute it, or so that they can then justify some of the hateful things that they say. And it's not to say that in all cases that's what it is, but it is to say that in most cases, the only time where people, and especially Black folk, want to question the science about humanity and people's humanity specifically is when they want to be able to justify ways in order to combat their humanity. I shouldn't have to understand the biological structure of what makes a trans person to respect you. I shouldn't have to understand the biological makeup of what makes you who you are in order to believe that you deserve peace and respect and that you deserve love and every other thing that I deserve. And I'm not going to sit up here and act like I'm some metaphysicist, you know, but
my question, like I respect everything you're saying. I don't disagree with any of what you're saying. My question is more because when you change definitions of science, it has real world implications so I understand that in sports, take it to in the area of sports where trans women or men are engaging in the same sport with trans women, and people think that it's unfair because of muscle density, bone structure, things of that nature, hip displacements, all of those things that allow a person to be a better athlete. And I guess just the core of the question is more of like, since 1905, we determined gender be chromosomes. So if it's not a genetic modification to anything, to a piece of metal, to a whatever, how are you capable of changing the definition without changing the science? You know what I'm trying to say? Because my brain just works in science. I spew out statistics and stuff all the time. So,
but that's the thing. It's not. Let's be very clear. Gender is not defined by chromosomes. Sex is defined by chromosomes. Gender is defined by societal notions of what people perceive to be feminine and masculine. And then to even go back to the thing that you were saying about sports, first and foremost, the idea that men are just supposed to be inherently better at sports is a complete misogynistic view that I think only men have. I don't think that men are better at sports. What I think is that men are more capable at some of the sports that we've decided, you know, to indulge ourselves in, but that does not make men inherently better. And especially when you're talking about the ways in which female athletes, and when I say female, I do mean cisgender women, are being discriminated against right now. We have a case where a Black cisgender woman is not being allowed to play because her testosterone level, the levels that she was naturally born with as a cisgender woman, are showing up in ways that they would show up in what people would presume to be a transgender woman. And so now she's facing transphobia and trans negativity as a cisgender woman, where we're seeing the ways in which all of this stuff is showing up in real world cases, but they're showing up only in certain spaces. And let's just be specific about this here. People only give a shit when it's transgender women. Because there are transgender men that engage in sports all the time. There are transgender men that are boxers that have won their matches. And there's not a single outrage or outcry about that because of toxic masculinity and the small veil on male egos, because they don't want to be able to say that somebody who was supposed to be a woman has just beat me in my boxing. But the second that a transgender woman wins a foot race, it's like, oh my God, this is unfair, you know, like. And I think that that's something that needs to be discussed as well if we're talking about that particular topic. But I think as it pertains to what you're saying, as far as like the biology and the genetic makeup, I don't foresee the idea of what makes women changing. I think that the access to the information is the only thing that should be dictating whether or not you're involved. If you're a cisgender man and you decide, you know what, transgender women are not my thing, pre-op, post-op, whatever op you are, I don't want to deal with that. That is the only thing that really changes. Outside of that, women are women and men are men, and non-binary people are the people that fall within the middle that we should really be doing the research on to understand where they fall in the everyday life and society of people. But I think that a lot of folks make it a lot more complicated than it has to be for, once again, safety of their own egos. Some women don't want to be fooled and tricked by trans men. A lot of men don't want to be fooled and tricked by trans women. And so therefore there's this need to define and separate and make sure I don't make the mistake of, rather than just living in a world where you can say, oh, you're trans and I'm either cool with that or I'm not cool with that. But now I'm going to move on about my day and continue to leave you to your business.
So when you say the
you
whole
know.
fool thing, do you feel, and Monroe and I had a conversation about this, do you feel that a trans person should reveal to somebody that they just met that they are trans?
Let me tell you something. It really depends on certain situations. And I will say that oftentimes it really is, it's more of a detriment to trans women. As a trans woman, especially when I get myself together, y'all see, like when I get together and I pull my shit together and I, got my hair did and all this other stuff, like, and I'm just out and about, even when I'm not, I'm still received as just a regular Black woman. And when I was living in Texas, sitting at a bar, minding my own business, a man bought me a drink. A cisgender woman did not like that and revealed to him, because she worked with me and she knew my tea, that I was trans. Upon leaving that bar, I was jumped by 5 people just because he bought me a drink. Not because I engaged him. I didn't pursue this man. We never exchanged numbers. But he bought me a drink and his friends saw him buy me a drink. And so therefore he had to protect himself by jumping me. And if it weren't for the bar hop that knew, like to look out for my car on the way out, Lord knows what would have happened to me in that alley. But it's just one of those things where I feel like disclosure shouldn't be at my discretion to just tell to everybody, because sometimes people are going to be ignorant regardless of when you tell them, when you don't tell them. But I honestly don't believe that I should have to say anything to you until I know that there's a possibility of us being intimate and that I'm actually interested in you. There are plenty of guys that walk around here with chlamydia, the clap, HIV,
And
AIDS, and all that stuff.
that we've had.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, Monroe. And Quincy, I know you're holding.
Oh, and I'm sorry, I don't know.
There, so you're yeah, it's a little bit behind. But Quincy, I know you're in the background. I'm just letting you know we are going to get to you, so just hold on for a second. Go ahead, Monroe. Let me see if we can hear you.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't know if it's my internet that's messing up, but I just wanted to say, I know, Chrystee, when we had the conversation, this was this piece on, like, you cannot use justification of the killing of Black trans women as Black men feeling like they have been duped or tricked, because as far as Hope just pointed out, in a real case scenario, a real lived experience, a Black trans person, Black trans woman in particular, can only be minding her business and be brutalized. So minding her business and be brutalized. So just understanding that this justification for the killing of Black trans women, that they've tricked me or duped me, does not, there's no substantiation around that, and that should be thrown out and never part of a conversation of justification for killing anybody.
Janora, did you have something real quick? So we're gonna hopefully Quincy will come back in, because I think he just went out for a second. But I want to make sure that we get to him with the BPS of the week. But Janora?
No, again, I'm just filled with emotion over here. And Hope, you are one brave, badass sister. I appreciate you being on the show. I appreciate you sharing with so much candor and power. And I hope that all of us can take just a bit more love, compassion, understanding, and spread that. And I think that, like you were saying, Monroe, I think a lot of it is rooted in fear. I'm so glad you broke down, Hope, the idea of a lot of this rooted in this idea of masculinity. I just want better for us. I just want better for us in this world.
Yeah. I mean, I just think it's so important that we start to have these conversations, because again, there's so much miscommunication. Like you were saying, it's the fear. It's I'm just so tired of our world being so separated, and this is here and you're here and this is here, and I don't like you and I don't like you and I don't believe in you and you're a sin and you're wrong. And I'm getting so sick of it just hurts. and I it hurts. And I have a family member that I know is not alive today because he was afraid to let people know who he was from that time period. You know, when you're growing up in the 70s and the 80s and all that kind of stuff, you don't admit those things. And I'm just getting to a place where I just want people to be able to live in their truth. And I'm tired of seeing people dying, and I'm tired of seeing people taking their lives, and I'm tired of seeing people not feeling loved and being on drugs. I just feel like we really need to love on people, and that's just where I am right now. So that's just how I feel. Oh, we can see you a little bit better now. Hope we got a little light. Monroe, do you have anything that you want to say? Because I know I got to get to Quincy in there. Otherwise, I would have kept this conversation going. Thank you, Quincy, for holding. Go ahead.
I appreciate you for facilitating this conversation here and for allowing me to come on this evening. It's always a pleasure to be with my people. And I appreciate even if we have, different understandings and different views. And I just hope that individuals will take this conversation. I've been seeing some comments. I've been streaming this, and the person who's been commenting on my page, I'm gonna call you after this because we need to talk. But I just want to say that, like, while individuals may feel like it's to talk about and unearth some of these underlying issues that contribute to the atrocities that are happening within our Black community, it is very important, because if we never call it out, that's how these things continue to be perpetuated. Mm-hmm. So I'm never going to be unapologetic or ashamed to call some shit out as we get to what are some solutions. But first of all, people need to recognize and take a look at what it really is. So you know who you are. I'm going to call you after this show because I've been reading your comments on my page.
Abdul.
No, I thank you both for coming on the show and speaking your truth and enlightening and all that other good stuff. All my questions come from a place of love. I don't care what people do with their personal lives or their what have you. I'm pro-Black people. That's always been my stance with everything. And I think that with trans people, with even cisgendered straight male or gay male, I think violence in our community is an issue. It's a deep issue. Hope spoke about minding her business and getting attacked. I've been attacked. I've been shot at for just being in the wrong neighborhood with the wrong colors on, or just being in the wrong neighborhood. And I'm not saying it's the same thing, but the point I'm making is that Black people collectively need to stop attacking one another, regardless of what they think their reasons are, because their reasons aren't good enough, no matter what you say. We should not be killing, attacking, harming, provoking one another. That's just my stance.
Hope, I know you said something, but did you want to leave with anything?
Just treat people how you want to be treated, child. It's as simple as that. Treat folks how you want to be treated, and mind the business that pays you. Sometimes shit is not for you to understand. If some shit doesn't make sense to you, sometimes it ain't supposed to, and you mind the business that pays you. If it don't make your lights come on and off, if it doesn't put food in your kid's mouth, if it doesn't get, whatever, just mind the business that pays you. I think that people put a lot of work on themselves by trying to understand things that don't particularly affect them in any way, shape, or form, and who people sleep with and who people show up in the world as usually doesn't, So I think that that's like the best way when things are just truly confusing to you, is just to mind your business. You know what? That's them over there, and I'm gonna mind this business over here because this is what keeps me paid.
Well, and again, I said this over and over almost every show. I want to have the whole reason why I think we created, Abdul and I created the show, and the wonderful Janora joined when we made this a panel show. But it's for us to talk about Black things that people are not talking about. And it's important for us, in order to grow, to come together, to really start to make a difference in the world as Black people together and support one another, is we need to have these conversations that separate us. So with that being said, on a positive note, we're going to get to our BPS of the week. And so our BPS of the week is Quincy Lanier Gosfield. He is an award-winning and Emmy-nominated TV producer and director. However, he is also a retired cook from a long family history of chefs and cooks and caterers. He is a born artist with a love of food, a long-standing career in entertainment, and a passion and dedication to empower the Black community through Black-owned businesses, which is why he created Black Cupboard, and that's why it was born. So let me just bring on Quincy. Hey.
Oh, hey. Hey. That was
Like,
quick. Just like popped on there like that.
Like, I'm here. Wait, let me bring you on over here. There you go. There you go, Quincy.
How you guys doing?
Hey, Quincy.
Really enjoyed the conversation. Really enjoyed the important conversation you guys were having there. Can never do enough in an hour. But
I know. That's why I was like, oh, nobody kept it going, but I was like, I don't want Quincy to hang up on us. So
no, that's okay. You gave me time to eat, so that's good.
So Quincy, tell us a little bit about your business, how it was started. I know you're a great friend of Janora, so
we go way back.
So y'all go way back. So just give us a little information. Yeah, he's like, I know you. Just about your business and how it got started, especially through this whole pandemic. And I'll bring it up for everybody to see. Go ahead.
Well, okay, where do I start? Well, I start with, first of all, COVID. So basically, we were here in Atlanta working, and COVID shut down production. And so, we found ourselves in March kind of at home trying to figure out what the hell was going on and how to live safely. And simultaneously, we were having, civil rights unrest throughout the country. And those two things combined really gave me time to like sit and think, like, what am I doing? What am I doing to contribute, or how can I contribute to the movement and what's going on? Because for me personally, at the beginning of COVID, I would say maybe a month into it, I lost quite a few family members. So I'm one of those individuals who I'm not playing with it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not playing with it. I'm not dealing with anything until we figure this out. So it kind of made me feel like I'm just home, and every day I'm watching the news and I'm watching social media, and I'm watching us out there fight and march and riot and protest and be angry and do everything. All of to me, all roads lead to the same change that we're looking for. And I just like, what can I do from here? I feel like I'm not doing anything. Like I'm trapped in the house. I'm not doing anything. So me and my husband were having a discussion, and we started talking about equity. Equity in the African-American community, and we started talking about the Black dollar. So that just kind of led to this whole like research about, okay, what can we do economically to affect the change that we want to see? Because I believe that you have a hammer, a nail is nothing without a hammer. So, I believe in the vote, get out there and vote. But I also believe that hammer behind that vote is the Black dollar. It is the Black dollar. And so what I actually created was something called 21 Days Black Economic Empowerment Challenge, which was based off the Deepak Chopra 21 Days meditation challenge. So it was 21 days to empower the African-American community economically and to encourage affirming and community building habits and to unlearn bad habits. So that was my own challenge. That was the challenge to myself. Like, what can I do differently? I realized that for years I had not been spending my money in my community. I have not been helping build the economy in my community. So during that, this whole like freaking Aunt Jemima thing happened, right? and it was like, don't buy Aunt Jemima, don't buy Uncle Ben's, you know, like stop buying all of this stuff. So in my group, since we had like over 1,000 people join and who all joined the challenge, I created one day called Blacken Your Breakfast. And Blacken Your Breakfast was in response to the Aunt Jemima, you know, controversy. And how can you build a breakfast with all Black owned products? So I did the research to try to find like different alternatives, except, you know, to the syrups, to the biscuits, to the whatever. And when I was doing that research, I discovered this crazy, wonderful world of Black owned foods that were kind of unknown. You know, like they maybe there'd be a blog that would mention 2 here, and then there would be another blog that might mention 1 there. But there are thousands. There are literally thousands. And that was the germ of the idea for Black Cupboard. And I wanted to share this information because I felt like, what way can I how can I encourage the African American community and people in the community to begin to buy within our community, to recirculate the Black dollar? And the best way is through food.
So all
One
of
of the
these
best
that
ways.
are on, so all of these that are on your Instagram right now, these are all Black owned products, correct?
All Black owned products, great products, really, really, really good products. I can say I've had about 2/3 of the products that we've curated so far. Yeah, dog, right there. That is a trans male Black owned company. So, you know, we have everybody's represented in these companies, and, you know, from Black liquors to Black beverages to meats to, you know, it's just like, it's so easy to buy Black.
So
And
how do they order these products? Do they go to your site? Do they go to your Instagram? And then what is there, a link or something on there?
So every week we curate about 7 to 8 different products, and all of the information to purchase those products are within the post. So you can follow their pages. We give you their websites. And right now we've been working with some companies who have worked with Black Cupboard to provide discounts on some of the products if you use a Black Cupboard code. This is our second giveaway right now. We're doing the National HBCU giveaway. So there are 12 products. It's a big basket, 12 products, 12 different companies will be sending out their stuff to one winner next week. So,
this is,
you know,
wonderful. Yeah.
It's been fun. I mean, it's been fun. Look, I've had a great time eating this stuff, trying it. Look, I got my Black bourbon right here, Black owned bourbon right here. You know, I got me some McBride Sisters rosé right here. That's my next move, building a Black bar. I'm trying to my bar down here. I'm trying to slowly shift it to primarily Black owned liquors as well. So
I know that I'm giving out the Instagram. We're going to wrap up our show because I know we're like 15 minutes over. My bad, everybody. Thanks for hanging on. I know that you have your Instagram. Do you have a website as well, or is that being built?
the website is will be launching in October, but it is blackcupboard.com, full spelled out blackcupboard.com. We're also on Instagram. We're also on Facebook. So we have a Facebook page that's built, that's growing there as well. The Instagram page is doing really well right now. So yeah, we're just growing, and we want people to go, especially if you went to an HBCU, go and join this contest. Okay, it's HBCU, National HBCU Week. You got to go tag your HBCU, and you got to go tag your alum to get into the competition and win 12 amazing products to your house to start off your, what we call the hashtag 1 million Black Kitchens Challenge. So that is our challenge, hashtag 1 million Black Kitchens. We're trying to create 1 million Black kitchens by the end of 2021.
I love it. Look, I know this is, Janora, I'm gonna let you take over just because, and then we're gonna wrap it up because, you know, this is your boy. This is your boy. But I have to say that I am extremely excited. I cannot wait to go on there and try the different products because I do believe in supporting Black businesses.
And there are recipes on there. If you go to the IG Live, there are recipes on how you can use some of these products. I mean, and we curate throughout the African diaspora. So there's foods from the Caribbean, there's foods from West Africa, from South Africa. They're all made in the United States, but there's Ethiopian products, there's, African American, Creole, Geechee. Like we really want to influence, the diaspora of Black foods in America. So
as we've been talking over the last couple of weeks, there are so many different perspectives of Blackness. So
yes,
go ahead, Janora.
Yes, and they all taste good.
Amen. Go ahead, Janora. There you go.
Let me unmute myself. I'm so excited, but why do you have to come right now when I'm about to change my COVID evil eating ways? I'm so excited about everything that you are bringing and everything that you are doing, Quincy. I saw what sweet potato cream cheese stuffed waffle.
Yeah.
Goodness.
That's pretty good. Pretty good.
Do you have a favorite out of all?
Okay, I'm
everything you've tried?
gonna be honest. I'm a Virgo. My birthday was just Sunday, so I don't have favorites. But I will tell you that I'm hooked right now on Blanket's pancakes and syrup. Blanket is a husband and wife team out of the Carolinas, and they got this honey vanilla, I believe, or honey butter pancake mix. I'm telling you, we have ordered it at least 3 or 4 times already because I was like, we can't eat pancakes every day.
Who said you can't?
Yeah, but that's one of my favorites. But yeah, I mean, it's quite a few. The Pipcorn company out of, I think, Indiana, Illinois. So, brother and sister owned Black company. That popcorn is freaking amazing. We went through it. Symphony Chips, it's a Black owned potato chip company. I mean, look, it's a lot.
Well, y'all make
That's
sure
all I
y'all
can
go
say.
on there. Yeah, y'all make sure y'all check it out because we want these people to know that we are supporting them. We want to see them thrive even through the pandemic and this coronavirus because we know that all things can work. It don't matter if you're going through. I think we just lost Monroe. I'm sure he's got.
I think he went to go in order.
Yeah, there you go. But anyway, we want to make sure we support. We're gonna wrap this up. Say goodnight because we are like 20 minutes over. Thank you everybody for hanging in there. Hope, thank you for coming in. I didn't get a chance to put everybody's banner that was on there, but this is Hope's. If you guys want to follow Hope, and of course there he is. And if you guys would, let me just bring him back in. Add to the stream. And if you guys would like to follow Monroe, this is his Instagram as well. We are going to end this. I hope you guys enjoyed the conversation. I hope you guys learned something. And we will definitely see you guys next week. Good night, everybody.
Thank you, guys.
Hi. Thank you, Quincy. Thank you, everybody. Let me just end this.